So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint another black cat illustration. This is a very easy tutorial, and I'm going to use it as a chance to show you how to use shading to give your painting structure instead of depending on outlines. As always, you can look in the description below this video to see a list of the brushes and textures I'm using to get this watercolor effect. So as you can see, I've got my sketch and color palette already placed in here. And they're placed in here as the very top layers, and you can download both of these for free in the description. I'm going to start painting on a blank layer, and for the brush, I'm going to use the abstract round, and I'm going to do the plant pot first. So I'll do a long press on the red color, and then fill that one in. After that, I'm going to use the water blender brush to lightly blend some of these hard edges. After that, I'm going to use the eraser brush, which I've set to the fine liner pen, and I'm going to cut back the red here to match the sketch a little bit better. Next, I'm going to make a new blank layer, and I'm going to choose a very dark bluish color, and this is going to be for the cat. I'm going to use the same abstract round I used on the pot, and once again, I'll roughly fill this in. Now, just like before, I'm going to use the eraser brush to cut back my painting here so it matches the sketch a little bit closer. The problem though is it's hard to see the lines because the cat is black and the lines are black. So what I'm going to do is just temporarily lower the opacity of the cat. That makes it easier to see the lines. And I'm just going to go around this and cut it back. I'm not going to erase everything. I'm just going to erase a line that sort of cuts out the silhouette. And once that's done, I can return the opacity back to 100%. And I've still got a lot of black that I need to erase. And you could erase that by hand, but I want to show you a time-saving trick. So I'm going to grab the selection tool, set to automatic, and I'm just going to select the body of the cat. So I need to slide this so just the body is highlighted here. Then I'm going to go to invert. That will select everything but the body of the cat. And then I can just clear it from that layer. And it's a little bit complicated to see, and in some cases it doesn't quite work, but this will save you a lot of time with erasing. Now the cat here is a very three-dimensional object, and normally I would add outlines to kind of differentiate the different parts of the cat, but I'm always trying to reduce my use of outlines, and I want to show you a way to do that just by using shading. So I'm just going to make sure that the layer with the cat is selected. Then I'm going to use the selection tool, set to freehand. And as an example here, I want to create some contrast here with the back leg and the tummy. So what I'm going to do is make a selection just in this area, hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll brighten it a little bit. Then the back leg, I'll select that, but this time I'm going to darken it. And this outline needs to stay kind of harsh to give it contrast, but these can be softened. So I'm going to switch over to the water blender brush and soften those. And you can see this gives it a really three-dimensional, almost carved appearance. And I'm going to use that same trick to do all the shading on this. Now to finish up the shading, the last part here is on the face. And the face is kind of smoothly protruding out, so it's going to be a totally soft highlight. So to get that, again, I'll use the freehand selection tool. I'll make a circle like this. Then I'm going to feather it out. This will soften the whole edge just automatically. And I'll lighten it a little bit, just like I did before. Now this cat turned out a little bit more like a dark gray instead of black. So I want to darken it, and this does happen once in a while, and a trick I use a lot is to just create a duplicate of the element that I want to be darker. So I've got two kind of stacked. The top one, I'll switch to multiply, and then I can just lower the transparency and use that to kind of control the level of darkness here. I think that's a pretty good point. And then I'll just pinch them to merge them together once again onto one layer. At this point, I'm going to move on and start adding some details to the cat, starting with the face. And I'm going to do all those on their own blank layer just above the cat. And I'm going to use the fine liner pen and mostly these two colors to do those details. Now I want the pupils to be super black, so I'm just going to select pure black and then use the same fine liner pen to fill those in. And to finish up these details, I'll choose pure white. I'll add a little highlight on the corner of the eye, and then some claws on each foot. Next, I'm going to move on and make the plant stand, and that's really easy. I'm going to make another blank layer above everything. I'm going to select this color here, this kind of khaki tone. I'll use the abstract round brush, but at a little bit of a smaller size. And I'm going to try to do this all in one continuous stroke. After that, I'm going to add some shading where the top part here is casting a shadow on the legs. So I'll use the freehand selection tool and just select the upper part of each leg. Hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll darken it. And that's pretty much the main way, the main technique I use to make shadows. I just find it's really convenient and kind of intuitive for me. And now the last element that we need to paint here are the leaves. And again, I'll make those on their own blank layer. For the color, I'm going to use this green color. And for the brush, I'm going to use a default Procreate brush you can find under the drawing tab. It's called Freycinet. I use it quite often on my channel. It has a really nice dry, scratchy effect. And it's also very opaque. So that means when I paint with it, it totally covers up what I'm painting over. And that's why I didn't need to cut out spaces for the leaves on the pot, because it's going to cover that up just fine. So I'm going to use this Freycinet at a pretty small size and do all the leaves like this. And periodically, I'm going to adjust the color a little bit so that they're not all exactly the same shade of green. Now, after this first kind of pass for the leaves, you can see in quite a few areas I've gone over the edges of the sketch, and I'm kind of covering the cat. I'm not going to worry about it now. I can fix that easily in a minute here. For now, I'm just going to go over it again using a pretty dark shade of that green, just to add some variation within the leaves. And for the last detail, I'll choose a very, very light yellow color, and I'll do a center line down the middle of each leaf. So this illustration is almost done. We've just got a few more finishing touches. I don't need the sketch or the color palette anymore, so I'll turn those off. Now, wherever the leaves are overlapping on the cat, I'm going to use the eraser brush, still set to the fine liner pen, to cut those back. In this case, I think the leaves turned out a little bit too uniform, so I'm going to add a color variation effect. And to do that, I'm going to use the selection tool set to freehand. And I'm going to make a random selection that just covers different areas of the leaves. Then I'll feather it out, hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm going to shift the hue here, and you can see it just shifts the color wherever I made that selection. So I'm going to shift it a little bit towards yellow. And there we go. This black cat illustration is all done. And here's a closer look at the final result. So in this example, I've printed the cat out on a 5x7 folding card, and I actually used watercolor paper. As long as the paper isn't too rough, it prints totally fine. And it gives it a very thick, kind of high quality premium feel, and I think it's definitely something worth trying if you want to sell your prints. And there we go, that pretty much wraps it up. If you think I've earned it, please give this video a like. If you want to see the other black cat tutorials that I've made in the past, you can watch one of these two videos next.